Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, and of most excellent fancy. Or something like that. It's been a while since Shakespeare. Hey guys, talking about fancy, let's discuss what I did over the weekend. Hey guys, welcome back to Building Steam. I'm Brian Fadrosh of Brian Fadrosh Designs. This week I'd like to talk a little bit about a step that I took as far as my Blue Devil helmet build goes. Before I get to him, however, if you're enjoying what we're doing here on the page, make sure you're hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. If there's something specific that you'd like to see discussed or built as far as foam smithing goes, or if there's something that you would like to see my better half, Sheila Fadrosh, better known as Lady Delatois, cover as far as fabric arts and, sewing goes, by all means, leave us a comment down below. We'll certainly get to a video for that. But this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about Blue Devil, which is something I started working on for the past 2 weeks. I didn't do a video last week, sorry. I'll do better. But this is Blue Devil. For those of you who may not know, he is a DC Comics character. He was a stuntman that got stuck in a suit that he built for a movie. There was a bolt of lightning or something, and he got stuck in the suit and then subsequently became something of a weirdness magnet. Something I can certainly identify with. He was a character that I always enjoyed, and in thinking about doing something a little different and a little out of my normal color scheme, I opted I would start building Blue Devil. So I started looking at reference material and then found out there's like 4 different versions of him. So there's the original where it's very, smooth skin, very comic book, big white horns that are very angular, just kind of jut out and jut back. And then there's, another evolution of him where he goes very Savage Dragon or very Magnolia, where it's very angular and he's got these, thinner horns that have this gorgeous texture and they're gold. And then evidently, as of recently, he is a completely full-blown demon. So with all of those different reference materials, I decided I was just going to make my version of Blue Devil. So he's kind of an amalgamation of all of those different things. This week's video is not going to be a full build video. I specifically want to talk about skinning and show you what I did to skin him. Skinning, or what I refer to as skinning, is taking a layer of foam over everything that's underneath there. But just to kind of give you a general idea of what's happened up until this point, the original understructure is a Red Hood template from Heroes Workshop that I have tweaked to my liking and changed that a lot. The horns are from Evil Ted Smith, and this is obviously all built with SKS Props foam, which is, in my opinion, the best HD foam out there. But in the meantime, I'll put a link in the comments or in the description down below as far as those 3 things go, just so you guys can check them out if you already haven't, if you're new to foam smithing. But I built the understructure. Instead of trying to change the understructure and bump everything out with undercuts and overcuts and gluing it all, I built the helmet and then literally just added bits and pieces to kind of give me this structure. But what that then entailed was I had a ton of seam lines, and the show will tell you, I hate seam lines. I struggle with them, but I always have seam lines. So in the meantime, what I did is I wanted to try something a little different, and I thought I would go with some skin. So I wanted to give him more of an organic look than I normally would go for. So essentially what I did is I treated the 2mm foam with some tin foil, heated it up, jammed it in there, so it kind of got me those little nooks and crannies to work with. And then, originally I thought I was just going to take a sheet of 2mm foam, drop it over there, and just glue it down. It didn't work out that way. So let me show you what I did. So knowing I was going to have to go in sections, I decided I'd start with the actual face portion first. I knew the edges were going to line up with the edges of the understructure, so it wouldn't give me that harsh of an edge for where they met. Now I figured out approximately how big of a piece of 2mm I would need to get just the face part, but also leave myself enough overlap that once I had it all glued down, I could trim the excess away with my X-Acto blade. Now it probably wasn't the best method, but my original plan obviously wasn't going to work, so I decided to wing it. Now I hit both sides of the foam with a heat gun to get it to lay flat first. Now this also allowed me to add a little extra heat for the next step. I knew I wanted the majority of the face to be as much of a single piece as possible. Now, knowing the piece was larger than I needed, I still opted to texture it all. That way I could reuse the parts that I cut off if I still needed them. Now, to add the texture, I simply took some tinfoil and crinkled it up, and yes, crinkle is the technical term. Then unfolded it and set it down on the piece and applied a hot iron firmly, and then moved on to another section and repeated until the entire 2mm piece was covered. Now remember, when you're using this technique, you don't want to move the iron in a regular ironing motion. You want to pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. Otherwise, it tends to smooth the texture out more than you would like. So with the piece textured, it was time to put it on. And yeah, I probably would have used smaller sections now that I think about it. But of course, as always, hindsight is 20/20. Now I applied contact cement along the back edge of the brow and I anchored the piece in place. I figured doing that would allow me to work my way down bit by bit until I had the face portion covered. Now, of course, for whatever reason, I seem to have forgotten that contact cement only works if you put it on both pieces. So I ended up having to flip the piece up onto itself to add contact cement onto the back of it as I worked my way down. Now, while that seemed to be kind of a pain, I still managed to get the piece into place. Now, one thing I really do like about using SKS HD foam is that even with just the heat from your hands, it makes it pliable, allowing me to get some good wrinkles and furrows in by just constantly working a section until I like the way it looked. Now, much like freehanding a pattern, I just kept working it bit by bit until it looked right and then just moved on to the next. Of course, flipping it upside down onto itself to add more contact cement. Now, I was also being careful to crease the piece where it met a curve, for, say, example, the side of the nose moving into the cheekbones. Now, this doesn't make for any sort of really hard line, but it certainly helped accentuate that transition from one feature to another. Now, I was also sure when I was doing this to really work the eye sockets, mostly so I could get them to open as close to what was underneath as humanly possible. Now, to get some of those really deep wrinkles and furrows, what I would do is take the foam as I was applying the 2mm sheet and fold it in onto itself so the contact cement would grab, and then apply it to the understructure. That way you'd have a solid wrinkle that would not come out. Once I got to the bottom of the nose, I realized I was going to have a problem. The sheet that I was using was just too large, and I wasn't going to be able to get it to lay flat well enough as I had been up until that point. I decided to cut the piece on the fly and simply cut out the center section. That way, the outside edges would still follow the outside of the face, and I would just have to go back and fill in the lips and the area just to the sides and above and below them. Now, it actually worked out better that way, so hooray for happy accidents. But like I said, hindsight is 20/20. Now, smaller sections or pre-planned template pieces would have made this much easier. Now, obviously, with the slight problem that I had, I knew that the lips and the inside of the mouth weren't going to look quite the way I wanted them to, but I also knew that was going to just be a simple matter of going back through with some foam clay and some additional touch-up as far as the texturing goes to get it to look a little bit more consistent. I was pretty pleased. So in the meantime, I just trimmed off the edges on the outside of the face and knew that I had to start planning on how I was going to do the rest of the head. So with hindsight being 2020, I wasn't just about to start throwing foam back onto the rest of the head. I'm slow sometimes, but I do have my moments. I knew I needed a template to work from. That way I would be able to break it down into smaller sections, and with having a template would ensure that I had good coverage. I decided to go with a quick and easy template, and I went with my standby, which is going to be tinfoil and masking tape. Template wasn't going to be something that I planned on using over and over and over and over again. It was just something that I needed for that one particular build, so this is a quick and easy solution. Just covered what I needed to skin with tinfoil and then ran a single layer of masking tape over that. I just make sure all the tape isn't going in the same direction. That way it all holds together a little bit better. Now, once everything was covered, it was just a simple matter of drawing out where I was going to cut out each individual piece. Turns out it looks like I was only going to be able to get away with just doing 4 individual pieces, 2 sides and 2 centerpieces. But one of those centerpieces would need to have a dart, and I hate darts because that means a seam. But it also meant a better fit and a better curve. So a dart it was. Once everything was drawn out, I just simply cut along the lines I put in very carefully to ensure that I wasn't cutting anything underneath the template. A good way to avoid that from happening is just to pull at the edge of that cut as you're moving the blade through. Another way is just, paying really close attention to how deep you're cutting. I mean, either works really well. I should also mention I had to add 2 more seam lines, as it was going to be difficult getting the templates and the foam pieces that were going to be coming from them over and around the ears. So I just did a simple straight cut from just behind the ear to the edge of the back so they wouldn't be entirely too visible. Once the templates were off, the remainder of the head was going to be nothing more than just a simple matter of rinse and repeat. I textured out pieces of 2mm foam for each of the template pieces, transferred the pattern piece over, glued together my dart, which with 2mm foam is always a joy, and started applying them to the rest of the head. I started out with the centerpiece first, then the sides, and then finally the back centerpiece, which of course had that damn dart. Now, while technically speaking, the top of the head should simply be smooth, I still worked in a few wrinkles, especially in around the ears and along the top of the head just to add a little bit more character. Once everything was put into place, last but not least, I textured the ears by hand using some small balls of heated tinfoil and decided to add in a little bit more detail around the brow since it just didn't seem to look angry enough for me. Along with a little bit of touch-up around the lips, which of course still needs some teeth, overall, I would say it's a success. Hey guys, I hope you really enjoyed the video and how I skinned the Blue Devil. That sounds weird on so many levels. But anyway, granted, didn't work out originally the way I thought it was going to, and a couple little bumps in the road, but you know what? Overall, I am very pleased with it. I am currently working on some teeth for him, and once I get those in, I think he'll be ready for plasti dip and ultimately paint, which I'm looking forward to the paint. I really want to get some paint on this guy. But in the meantime, as soon as we get some more updates on that, I will certainly post about those. There's going to be a video coming out. Not entirely sure when, but hopefully soon. Sheila has been hard at work up in her studio working on the Zealot costume, and I can tell you guys, it's coming out fantastic. But as you all know, Zealot's got big shoulder armor, so Sheila's actually going to come down into the shop one weekend and actually learn to do what I do. And she's going to make big shoulder armor, and then I won't have to do these videos anymore because then Sheila can do them. That ain't happening. In the meantime, as always, guys, inspire, make, create, but above all else, happy making. We'll catch you guys next time. I did the Harris Heller thing. Wow, junior high school called. They want your hair back.